Hey everybody, it's winter 2019. We're in the middle of December. I'm gonna do a walk around and see what's still growing and make some observations about the forest garden. In my vegetable bed, there's not much growing. The parsley is still doing really well, even though we've had a couple frosts. So I've been eating off of that. The kale that I got in the ground a little too late in the season isn't doing that great. Um, but it's nice to be able to come out and have some baby kale greens. The nettles are knocked back by the frost for sure, but they regrow pretty quick. So you can see, like, I wouldn't necessarily go through the trouble of harvesting these little guys, but like the bigger crowns down there, I can harvest, take the tips, and I use them in eggs or smoothies. Super nutritious, and so you could be having nettles throughout the winter. There's some chickweed. I don't really eat much chickweed though, but that grows everywhere. Pawpaw trees are doing well. It's funny, you can see a change in the height from this area, which is kind of like south, kind of like a southeast facing, and then it gets shorter. This is one of the shortest. This is my edible leaf mulberry variety that looks like the frost is knocking it back a little bit, but I'm hoping that it comes back um, next year because it did come from Florida, but it lasted last winter, so it should last this one too. I have some other videos on this plant. It's edible leaf goji berry. Makes these really big, wide leaves. Extremely nutritious, um, and it's still pretty small right now, but it's going to get bigger each year, and it's kind of cool because I could come out in the middle of winter and eat the greens off of this plant once it's bigger. The Kievia vine still has its leaves. It keeps its leaves almost year round. It produces a fruit called the chocolate vine fruit. I have a pollinator for this one this year, so I'll actually get some fruit on it. But it's really cool to climb up a fruit tree because I don't have a lot of trellises, so the trees act like trellises, and it doesn't really affect the tree too much. Most of it doesn't have the vine on it. That's an apricot tree. Kind of like these walking onions that just they just take care of themselves. They spread on their own. Give me green onions, a scallion type crop all winter long. They're kind of scattered throughout the forest garden, which is really great to have in the wintertime. Make miso soup and I top it with the scallions. It's really tasty. Same thing with the ramps back here. Although the ramps are knocked back pretty hard by the cold, but obviously still harvestable. Actually, they're pretty tender. They just aren't as vigorous as they are in the spring or in the fall. And there's even wild onions right behind them that are doing better, that pop up. I let them stay. I don't pull those out because, hey, it's wild onions. It's free food. Blueberries. Such a beautiful plant. It's kind of purplish pink new growth that comes out. It's really beautiful. Um, yeah, some of these trees are failed experiments. I'm trying to take out these plum trees that never actually fruited in this climate. So that was kind of a mistake to plant. My kiwi vine, not doing too much in the winter. More kibbia growing up this white mulberry tree. Um, Fig is always iffy. Looks like it still has some green on it though. So sometimes it doesn't make it through the winter. If it makes it through this winter, I'll have a ton of figs, so I'm super excited. But usually it does not. Um, it's my white peach tree. It makes some really delicious white flesh peaches that grow really well in this climate. Unfortunately, I grafted it onto a, I think it's a Prunus americana rootstock. So not a very vigorous rootstock. So you can see the scion that I grafted is growing a lot quicker than the rootstock underneath. Kind of a strange look to it, but basically will dwarf it. It's been this height for about a year now, and so it might not get too much bigger, which is kind of cool for a backyard tree. I'll have to remember this technique for future fruit trees in small places. But it's also, who knows if that will be incompatible in the long term, though. That's the problem. Not much happening here. Um, I had some herbs and vegetables and pigeon pea, which is a Puerto Rican crop. Seeds are still on it. Been meaning to cook those up, but it was super productive this year. And then the tuna sinensis. Um, let's check and make sure it's still doing okay. Yep, still green. But this is one of the most nutritious woody leaf crops in the world. The edible leaf goji berry was one of the most highest nutrient content, and this one's the other one, um, also called fragrant spring tree. And I'm keeping these kind of pollarded so that you can see where I made the cut. So I'm keeping it fairly low to the ground so I can harvest it really easily. The leaves taste kind of like garlic and onions. Um, so it's definitely really nice to have those nutritious leaves. This is the other Akebia vine, different variety, so I'll get that pollination. I haven't been out here in a while, so I'm seeing a lot of this stuff for the first time myself. Hazelnut's doing well. These are the male catkins. Um, they're going to produce pollen for the female flowers later in the winter and spring, so they can pollinate and start producing a hazelnut crop. I don't really get a ton, but I suspect that's because I only have one variety back here, and that's changed. I forgot to check on the other hazelnut variety to see if it's putting out male catkins, because if it doesn't, then I still won't get much next year either, which is a bummer. Honestly, we'd get like 4 or 5 hazelnuts off a pretty large shrub, which this is another one. And you can see it's got plenty of catkins as well. Although not really as many as the other one did. I guess it's kind of up by the top where there's sun. It's where there's most of them. The rest, where it gets more shaded, there's less catkins. Apparently these are edible too, so I might look into trying these up as a food, because it tends to produce a lot more than is needed. My mockingbird friend just joined us. He follows me around in the summertime while I'm mowing to pick up the worms and bugs that are exposed. So I think he thinks I'm his food friend whenever I come outside. The rest of this is pretty overgrown. This is the gumi right here. It's doing pretty well. Finally got some fruit off of it last year, so I'm excited to get even more this year. It's pretty loaded, actually. Yeah, it's a really beautiful plant. I like the look of the bark. It's kind of got this coppery color. I don't know if you can tell, but it's let's see. Yeah, I don't think it's gonna focus, but let's keep going here. Everything else is pretty dormant. And then king cherry is doing well. It needs a pollinator. Pollinating friend died. Yeah, he's. I should give him a name. He's following us around here. More wild onions still peeking through. I can dig down sometimes and come back here. I let the groundnut kind of grow wild back here, so I didn't see as many when I was out here earlier, but usually I can dig around and find little bits of groundnut to cook up, and they taste like a nutty potato, so they're pretty tasty. I'm not going to look for it right now, though. I've got other videos on groundnut if you search them up. Really want to clear this entire area in the back. There's kind of a lot of honeysuckle and other weedy species that I don't really want. And there's some cool plants. There's some black walnut. This is a gigantic pecan tree. There's mulberry back here, and I want to kind of free those from all the weedy spots. Real quick, I'll talk about my composting. I really need to turn the pile back there, but I've got plenty of leaves from my neighbors, and there's a giant wood chip pile that was here last spring that is starting to decompose down. I did inoculate it, but since it's in this spot where I wasn't keeping it consistently watered, I don't know if the inoculation really took. But it'll be great to have some really nice fungal dominated compost. And then that's the rest of my pile back there. I used to have red wiggler worms in my compost each year, and they would stay warm with the heat of the compost. But after a couple of years, their numbers dwindled down. They really need to get some more. It makes the compost decompose a lot quicker. Got some black raspberry vines in there. There's some boysenberry, blackberries in here. Again, I need to clean this out so I can really cultivate it a little heavier. But I wanted this to be a little bit more wild when I first designed this spot. But probably could use a little TLC. Another pawpaw tree. Hard to see, but yeah, it's in the full shade back here, so it's not growing as fast as the other ones are. Let's check on that dwarf hazelnut. Yeah, this is the dwarf hazelnut, and I'm not seeing any catkins on it. So looks like another year where I won't get many hazelnuts. Although I did plant one other type of species of hazelnut back there that might cross-pollinate. So there's still hope. Let's check out to the front. Oh, let's go this way actually. Got some pots with pecan trees that are inoculated with truffle mushrooms. I'm giving away to friends and selling. Pretty valuable. Everyone wants a nut tree that will grow truffles, right? Got some Nepali cactus. It's the front bed. The ground cover is all water celery, which I wonder if it probably tastes pretty good right now. Yeah, just kind of a fresh celery taste. A little citrusy. It's pretty good. And it will take over though, so you have to be careful where you plant it. It's kind of invasive. But it's been pretty, I keep this area mowed, so it doesn't really escape this bed. Of course, the aronia, one of my favorite berry plants. Super easy to grow, really productive. And a Feijoa pineapple guava plant in the background. This is one of the warmest spots because it's got a microclimate, so it likes it here. But I haven't gotten any flowers, haven't gotten any fruit off of it. I think the flower is so early in the spring. That's where it wants to flower. It wants to flower super early, but I think the sun angle, we're at the wrong latitude for it, so it's not triggering the flowering process. Because if it was a temperature thing, it would flower and then the cold would bite it. But I don't think that's it. All right, that's pretty much all the plants that I've got growing on. Thanks for watching. I'll check in the spring.